Hey friends. So I just had kind of a funny image arise in my mind. And it came out of actually a kind of narrowly focused conversation with a client and good friend from a few days ago, where we were talking about anxiety and how when we are in relationship to people who have high anxiety, we catch it. It's like it's contagious. We also start to feel that anxiety, and I mean, this is, obviously no breaking news story that emotions are kind of contagious in this way, but even though we know that intellectually, it's the kind of thing where monitoring for that and kind of screening our own emotions for how much they are really emanating from our own kind of self, from our own core, and how much they're in our system because we just breathed them in 1 second ago, or a minute ago, or 10 minutes ago. That's an interesting kind of internal emotional audit to do. And especially in the case of something like anxiety, because anxiety and the kind of tension of urgency that's created by it, that things have to get done a certain way or by a certain time, and the way there's just a kind of like holding on. Anxiety is an intense holding on, and it's I think what showed up for me as I started to reflect on this was, oh wow, interesting theme, Mr. Holloway, to pick up on right before the holidays, right as the holiday season. I mean, I feel like we're kind of on the cusp. Like, this is Annalisa's last day of school. Christmas break starts tomorrow. It's Katie's last day of school. We're going in. Family's arriving today and tomorrow. Here we go. And which for me anyway, being a kind of hermit as I am, this is like one of the most social times of year for me. We're going to have more people in this house than have ever been here. And so just developing an awareness of where are my emotions, when and where are my emotions my own, and when and where are they not my own? When and where are my emotions actually not mine? I'm just ingesting them from the environment around me. It feels like a useful exercise. It feels like a ultimately incredibly beneficial exercise for not just for kind of internal self-care and self-sanity maintenance, sort of emotional good grooming, but also for our relationships, because it's, how often do we see individuals or groups of people getting into a kind of emotional amplification battle or face off where we don't even realize why our emotional threshold is going up, or the anxiety threshold or the tension threshold. I mean, again, if this is happening to you with like the boundless bliss of existence and peaceful love of cosmic light, then great. Don't change anything. Keep that happening. Keep that amplifying. But if it's other emotions that are performing this magic trick, like you put an emotion in a hall of mirrors, between two mirrors, and it just goes bing, 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 and it gets to be a million times its size before you know it. And how often is that happening? Not because anything in us actually feels this way or believes what we're saying that deeply, or how often is that emotional snowball its own phenomenon entirely, and therefore really not leading to deeper relationship, deeper connection, deeper communication, greater mutual understanding, or any greater love, not leading to any of the kind of real purposes of our relationships or of our interactions. Most of the time, I would say, is the answer. Most of the time, when that kind of thing happens, emotions have their own logic, they have their own universe, they have their own their own weather patterns. And it's kind of like, one of the something that really gave me a lot of insight into the way this works is when I read the book Letting Go. And I know I spoke about this when I was actually actively reading the book. This is a while ago now, more than a year ago, year and a half ago probably. I read Letting Go by David Hawkins. And he talks about how the letting go process, letting go basically being a pretty simple technique of just objectively experiencing what's happening, letting ourselves, again, it's kind of predicated on the capacity to access a meditative state, or at least not necessarily like an epiphany, enlightenment meditative state, but a sense of stillness and a sense of, I can observe what's happening in my emotional experience without being so tied to it that it compels me to action, that I can't not act on my emotions. And then recognizing what they are and basically letting them go, allowing them to be there, allowing them to do their thing, but not fueling them. He spoke about what various approaches to emotional resolution do, and of course, generally, letting go is a relationship to them that actually, genuinely, if we're doing it right, it releases them. They are neither expressed, right? In other words, if I'm angry at someone, I don't go and yell at them, but also not repressed. So in other words, I'm angry at someone and I just bottle it up. I'm not going to say it. And then eventually I calm down, but then at some point it just comes out again because it's still there. It never actually left. It's just suppressed. Neither of those two things is letting go. And then he very interestingly talks about the side of that coin where there's a school of thought that says, well, emotions should be expressed. If they're not being expressed, then they're being repressed, and therefore an expression is better than repression, because repression is going to kill you inside, and eventually you won't even be able to deal with it. So you should just express. Right now, obviously, we put parameters around that. If you feel like you want to kill someone, you're not supposed to go do that. Nobody is advocating that. But there is a school of thought that believes expressing the emotions is the only way for them to not be repressed. And what David Hawkins says is that's not actually true. When we express a powerful emotion like anger, we are not expressing the full volume of our anger. All we're really doing is venting the top part of the iceberg, the part of the iceberg that sticks out above the water. We're venting that so that the remainder of that emotional content can then be repressed. We're venting the excess so that we can repress the body of the emotion. And I was like, wow. That so powerfully explains why it doesn't feel helpful to express negative emotions in a way that is hurtful to other people. It sort of reframes that from being something that's actually healthy because I'm just getting this out rather than in, and turns it into, no, you're not. We're just hurting somebody with something that we actually haven't dealt with and aren't going to deal with. We're just going to vent this, and then there's a giant iceberg under here. It's going to happen again. And so that kind of like willingness to sit with what we're feeling and to know that we are creating our emotions. Every single one of them is created by us, inside us. That's where that factory is. And of course, it's basically, this ends up being called our personality. We've created our general storehouse and warehouse and toy store of emotions in response to our lives. It's just the tools we've grabbed a hold of to cope. And now we're kind of stuck with them. Now this is what's in our warehouse. And unless we're willing to really go into that warehouse and audit what's there, decide what we want to keep, what we don't want to keep, then they're going to drive us. Our emotions are going to drive us. That we're not really going to understand why we feel them. We're going to think we do because we're going to have constant provocations that we attach our emotions to, and we're going to say, well, that thing made me feel that, but that's not actually what's happening. Actually, we already know on a deep level what we want to feel and what we expect to feel, and we're just going through the world finding places to hang those ornaments. I said ornaments just because it's the holiday season. You could call them other things. So yeah, as we all head into the holiday season and experience the incredible joy and the incredible pattern activation mechanism that is, not just the holiday season, but family season, loved one, close, formative relationship season. It's nice to remember that emotions are as much transmitted emotions are always a pandemic. Emotions are always a pandemic. They're always airborne and everywhere and flying around and bumping into us and happening to us. And they're not all coming from our core. They're not all coming from inside. They're not all, we need to be available. We need to be there for them to be triggered. But what we're experiencing in the moment is not making us feel it. We're absorbing this person's emotion, and it's making us let go of that, and then there's a kind of like, think of it like qigong practice, like you're breathing in, breathing out. To the extent we can do that consciously, I think it's going to make for a much more enjoyable, festive, loving holiday season. So that is my practice. That is my intention as I go into this phase. Thanks, folks. Thanks for watching. Much, much love. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.